A very good evening, aspirants. Welcome to Daily Newspaper Analysis of Shankar IAS Academy. Displayed here are the list of news articles that we are going to discuss today. As you can see, we have chosen news articles from different newspapers. So without much delay, let us get into the first news article discussion. Look at this editorial article. It criticizes the broken democratic political process in India. The author draws a valuable lesson by saying that the democratic political process is not about regime change or resistance, but to build consensus in favor of paths and providing platforms for collective action. This collective action will ensure the well-being of the whole society. So in this backdrop, let us learn some of the electoral reforms that can make democracy successful. See, this topic can be asked in GS paper 2 under the syllabus mentioned here. You can go through it. Let me read out the question for you. To enhance the quality of democracy in India, the Election Commission of India has proposed electoral reforms in 2016. What are the suggested reforms and how far are they significant to make democracy successful? See, this question is very straightforward. It asks you to discuss the electoral reforms proposed by ECI in the first part, and in the second part, it asks us to inquire about the significance of reforms to enhance democracy in India. So in the introduction part, you can write that elections are the cornerstone of any democratic system. It reflects the will of the people, providing right to citizens, fostering responsibility and accountability of the political class, and etc. Later, it has been plagued with various issues like increased political violence, bribing of voters, criminalization of politics, and etc. So to overcome this, ECI has proposed various reforms which we are going to see in our discussion. So you can write these points in the introduction part very crisply and move on to the first part of the body. Here you have to talk about the proposed electoral reforms. The first proposal is with respect to cleaning the criminalization of politics. The ECI proposed to amend the Representation of People Act and called for disqualification of candidates with criminal charges from contesting elections. Secondly, with respect to strengthening the none of the above, that is the nota option, know that the ECI made a proposal to mandate re-elections in the constitutions where nota receives the highest number of votes. This would allow the voters to reject unsuitable candidates. Thirdly, it asked for transparency in political funding, which is a major source of political corruption. CECI asks for setting limit on corporate donations to political parties, mandating the disclosure of donor identities, and etc. Then, to increase the active participation of voters in the electoral process, ECI proposed two reforms. Firstly, compulsory voting. The ECI suggested exploring the feasibility of introducing compulsory voting to increase voter turnout. Then it calls for amendment to section 60 of the RPA 1951 to provide overseas voter an option to vote through proxy or postal ballot to increase the NRI's participation. Finally, as an institutional reform, it asks for constitutional protection for two of its other election commissioners on par with the Chief Election Commissioner. As you all know, Chief Election Commissioner is protected under Article 324 Clause 5, but the election commissioners lack this protection. Apart from this, it calls for the expenditure to be charged on the Consolidation Fund of India. Lastly, it called for an independent secretariat to enhance its independence. So you can write these points and complete your first part of the body of the answer. Then you can move on to the second part of the answer. Here you have to write about the significance of the suggested reforms. See, the significance of eradicating criminalization of politics can be understood by this example. In 2004, around 24% members of parliament, that is MPs, had pending criminal cases against them. By 2009, this percentage increased to 30%, followed by a further rise to 34% in 2014. In the last Lok Sabha, as many as 43% of MPs had criminal cases pending against them. This shows the scale and magnitude of the criminals in the lawmaking. Even though Section 8 of the RPA 1951 disqualifies a person convicted with a sentence of 2 years or more from contesting elections, the pendency of cases gives them impunity. So the proposal to ban candidates facing heinous charges should be considered. Secondly, the turnout in 2019 general elections saw record voting turnout of 67%. This means more than 30% of Indian voters are not voting in elections. So to overcome this, Supreme Court introduced a nota in the People's Union for Civil Liberties versus Union of India 2013 confronting a negative vote, but this also doesn't invoke interest as votes to nota is of no use with options like re-election and etc. So to overcome this, ECI proposed this reform. Thirdly, with respect to political funding, even though various reforms have been initiated, this has not addressed the problem. We know that Supreme Court recently struck down the electoral bond scheme, terming it unconstitutional. So to overcome this, Election Commission even proposed a state-sponsored election. Finally, with respect to increasing voting, it has initiated reforms like public outreach campaigns, introducing vote from home option for the elderly people, disabled and etc. Recently, it has again forwarded a proposal to include proxy voting for NRI to increase their participation. So you can write these points in the second part of your answer. Now moving on to the conclusion part, here you have to give a balanced view. So you can write that, see, the various electoral reforms proposed by the Election Commission of India in 2016 can significantly enhance the quality of democracy in India. It aims to combat various evils of elections like money and muscle power, criminalization, public apathy to vote at the same time. However, the successful implementation of these reforms require the combination of factors like political will, public awareness, continued vigilance of civil society, media and etc. So you can write these points and finish your conclusion part. So in this news article discussion, we saw in detail about some of the reforms in election that was proposed by ECI, and we saw how it can strengthen democratic process in India. So with these learned points, now let us move on to the next news article discussion. Look at this front page article from the Hindu newspaper. According to the article, India has applied to the International Seabed Authority ISBA for exploring rights in the Indian Ocean seabed, specifically targeting the AN seamount. See, this move is partially motivated by concerns over Chinese vessels conducting reconnaissance in the same region, indicating China's interest in the seabed's resources. This is the crux of the news article given here. In this background, let us learn about the International Seabed Authority ISBA from the prelims perspective. See, International Seabed Authority is an autonomous intergovernmental organization. It was established in 1994 under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, in short called as the UN clause. Remember, ISA has an observer status to the United Nations. It has its headquarters in Kingston, Jamaica. ISA has 168 members. This includes 167 member states and the European Union. India is also a member of the ISA. So what are the functions of ISA? See, ISA regulates and supervises all the mineral-related activities in the international seabed areas beyond the limit of national jurisdiction. Apart from this, the ISA also considers application for exploration and exploitation of deep sea resources from contractors like countries, organizations and so on. As of now, on 18th January 2024, the Government of India submitted 2 applications to the International Seabed Authority ISA. One application has been submitted for the exploration of polymetallic sulfides in the Indian Ocean Ridge, which is also called as the Carlsberg Ridge. Here in this map, you can see that the Carlsberg Ridge is the northern section of the Central Indian Ridge. It is a divergent tectonic plate boundary between the African plate and the Indo-Australian plate, traversing the western region of the Indian Ocean. It covers a total area of 10,000 square kilometers. The second application was submitted for the exploration of cobalt-rich ferromanganese crust of the Afanasi-Nikitin seamount in the Central Indian Ocean. The area of the application covers 3,000 square kilometers and it is located about 3,000 kilometers off the Indian coast. Apart from this, Government of India currently holds 2 contracts for exploration in the Indian Ocean. The first is for exploration for polymetallic nodules in the Central Indian Ocean basin. It was signed on 25th March 2002, extended in 2017 and 2022 and will expire on 24th March 2027. The second exploration contract signed between ISA and Indian government is for the exploration for polymetallic sulfides in the Indian Ocean Ridge. It was signed on 26th September 2016 and will expire on 25th September 2031. As of today, ISA has 30 contracts for exploration in effect with 20 different sponsoring states for polymetallic sulfides and cobalt ferromanganese crust in the Indian Ocean, North Middle Atlantic Ridge and Pacific Ocean. Among the sponsoring states, 9 are developing states and 6 are small island developing states. So these are all very important facts that you have to remember about ISA. With these learned points, now let us move on to the next news article discussion. Look at this news article. According to the news article, a male passenger with a tourist visa to Thailand was denied by CISF at an airport for carrying 3 crore rupees worth of foreign currency in his suitcase. So an investigation investigation has been initiated to determine the source of the money. In this context, let us discuss about CISF from the prelims perspective. Before that, know that CISF can be expanded as Central Industrial Security Force. It was initially established in 1969 under CISF Act 1968 to protect major PSUs. Later, it was converted to Armed Force with a large ambit under an amendment to the Act in 1983. So remember, it was established after the recommendation of the Justice Mukherjee Commission. CISF is headed by an Indian Police Service officer with the rank of Director General. And also note that CISF is one of the 7 Central Armed Police Forces (CAPF) under the Ministry of Home Affairs. So the other 6 includes Border Security Force, the Indo-Tibetan Border Police, the Sastra Seema Bal, the Assam Rifle, the National Security Guard, and the Central Reserve Police Force. So what is the purpose of CISF? See, initially its remit was restricted to protecting government-owned industries, but this was expanded to include joint ventures and private undertakings in 2009. Apart from this, it also provides consultancy services to the private sector. So where are they deployed? See, the force is deployed in over 350 locations across the country in diversified areas like atomic energy and space installations, seaports, steel plants, coal fields, hydroelectric and thermal power plants, defense protection units, fertilizer and chemical industries, RBI's note printing mints, heritage monuments like Taj Mahal, and etc. So in simple words, CISF is an armed force that gives protection to all these strategic establishments. Now talking about the significance of CISF's duty, see, it ensures airport security at numerous international and domestic airports and manage security operations on the Delhi Metro. So this enhances public safety and counter-terrorism measures. CISF also plays a significant role in disaster management and operates a robust fire wing. Fire wing is nothing but a separate unit that provides fire services in the country. It is one of the largest firefighting force in the country. Apart from this, CISF has the largest percentage of women in its force in comparison to all other CAPFs. Presently, CISF is also providing security to the protected persons who are classified as Z+, Z, X and Y. So these are all very relevant facts that you have to remember about CISF. It is a very potential prelims as well as mains topic. Make a note of it. So with these learned points, now let us move on to the next news article discussion. Look at this news article. Recently, the new rules provided for a weekly rest of 48 hours for pilots instead of 36 hours, but this new rules have not yet been implemented. So following pressure from airlines, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, in short called as DGCA, has deterred its deadline for implementing revised duty norms for pilots. This is the crux of the news article given here. In this slide, let us learn the basics about DGCA and its functions. See, Director General of Civil Aviation is the regulatory body governing the safety aspects of civil aviation in India. It is an attached office of the Ministry of Civil Aviation. Remember, its headquarters is located in New Delhi with regional offices in various parts of India. The administration of the DGCA is vested with the Director General. Now let us see whether DGCA is a statutory body or not. See, Section 4A of Aircrafts Amendment Act 2020 deals with the creation of DGCA by the central government for the regulation of the civil aviation sector. This means DGCA is a statutory body. So what are the functions of DGCA? Firstly, it regulates the registration of civil aircrafts. Secondly, it formulates the standard for civil aircrafts, and it also provides airworthiness certificates to civil aircrafts that meet its standards. Thirdly, DGCA also issues licenses to pilots, aircraft maintenance engineers, air traffic controllers and flight engineers. It also conducts various exams to check their skills. Fourthly, it checks the proficiency of flight crew and other professionals like cabin crew, flight dispatchers. DGCA also issues a certificate to aerodromes. Here, aerodrome is a place or area where small aircrafts can land and take off. Then it issues air operators certificate to airlines that are based in India. Apart from this, it regulates air traffic to, from, within or over India by both India-based airlines and foreign airlines. Lastly, it coordinates all regulatory functions with the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. So these are all very important functions that are carried out by DGCA. So in this news article discussion, we saw in brief about DGCA. It is a regulatory body governing the safety aspect of civil aviation in India. It is actually an attached office of Ministry of Civil Aviation. It is a statutory body because it was created under Section 4A of Aircrafts Amendment Act 2020. Then we saw certain functions of DGCA. So with these learned points, now let us move on to the next news article discussion. Take a look at this news article. It talks about India Employment Report 2024, which is released by the Institute for Human Development (IHD) and International Labour Organization (ILO). So let us learn about the important findings of this report in this news article discussion. See, the report suggests that overall labour force participation and employment rate have increased recently, but at the same time, the quality of employment remains poor. Labour market indicators like labor force participation rate (LFRP), worker population rate (WPR), and the unemployment rate (UR) worsened between 2000 and 2018 but improved after 2019. The transition to non-farm employment has been slow, with women seeing an increase in self-employment and unpaid family work. According to the report, youth employment is of poor quality compared to adults, with more unpaid family work and stagnant or decreasing wages. The report highlights an increase in youth unemployment, especially among those with secondary education or higher. Women make up a large share of educated unemployed youths compared to men. The proportion of unemployed youth people in India with at least secondary education has nearly doubled from 2000 to 2022, reaching 65.7%. Young people make up to around 83% of India's unemployed population, while youth employment and underemployment increased from 2000 to 2019, especially decreased during the pandemic years. Apart from this, educated young people faced high level of unemployment compared to others during this period. These are major findings of this report by ILO. Now let us see what are the suggestions made by this particular report. See, to address the employment challenge, the report suggests focusing on productive non-farm employment, particularly in manufacturing, and supporting micro, small and medium-sized enterprises, that is MSMEs, through digitalization and cluster-based approaches. Other recommendations include improving job quality, addressing labor market inequalities, enhancing skill development and active labor market policy. Then fostering stronger partnership between the government, private sector and other stakeholders can improve the situation. Apart from this, the report emphasizes the need for targeted action in 5 key policy areas. First is promotion of job creation, then employment quality enhancement, then labor market inequality reduction, then skill development, and ALMP, that is active labor market policies strengthening, and finally addressing knowledge gaps in labor market trends and youth empowerment. In this context, Chief Economic Advisor said that the private sector should play significant role in hiring rather than relying solely on government intervention. While the government has implemented various measures to facilitate employment like skill development initiative and the national education policy, improvement are needed, particularly in instructor availability and reducing dropout rates. Apart from this, to effectively address employment challenges, the report emphasizes the importance of collaboration between the government, private sector and other stakeholders. It also highlights the need for targeted policy intervention in key areas like employment quality enhancement and skills development. So overall, the report underscores the urgency of addressing the complex and multifaceted issues surrounding employment in India. So these are all very important facts that you have to remember from recently released India Employment Report 2024. With these discussion, now let us move on to the next segment of newspaper analysis, which is the preliminary practice question discussion. Look at this first question. Aphasia nicotine seamount, sometimes seen in the news, is located in which of the following area? See, the correct answer here is option C, Central Indian Ocean. Moving on, this question asks you to find which of the following is the oldest central paramilitary force in India. See, the correct answer is option C, Assam Rifle is the oldest central paramilitary force in India. Moving on, look at this question about International Civil Aviation Organization. 3 statements are given and you have to find which statement given here is or are correct. See, here the first statement is correct. It is a specialized agency of United Nations. But the second statement is incorrect. Its headquarters is in Montreal in Canada. So if you eliminate the options, you will arrive at the correct answer, option D, one only, because the third statement is also incorrect. All regulatory functions with the International Civil Aviation Organization in India is coordinated by the Director General or Directorate General of Civil Aviation under the Ministry of Civil Aviation. So here the correct answer for the question is option D, one only. Moving on, look at this question. Indian Employment Survey is released by. The correct answer is option A, International Labour Organization. Just because its name is Indian, it does not mean only Indian part will do the survey. So the correct answer is option A, International Labour Organization. With this, we came to the end of the news article discussion. If you like the video, hit like, do comment, and don't forget to subscribe to Shankar IAS Academy YouTube channel. Now, thank you so much for listening.